You will be able to choose between two models for writing learning objectives. The first one is going to be from our textbook author. In chapter 1, you will see different kinds of information about objectives, beginning with their importance, the quality of objectives, the different types of objectives, how to write these objectives, and also how to sequence them. On the other hand, you may choose to use Major's model for writing instructional objectives. And in this case, you'll find information about the definition of instructional objectives, the reason for stating objectives, the qualities of useful objectives, and also a discussion of the components of useful learning objectives, as well as information about common pitfalls of writing objectives. You can choose whichever model you like for writing your learning objectives, whether Horton or Major. However, you do have to specifically state which model you will use, and then you have to follow their advice in terms of writing the particular objectives. So you have to include the components of the objectives the way that they indicate. Now, there are some areas of difficulty when it comes to writing objectives, especially at the beginning. One of them is the verb. The verb describes the behavior that the student is expected to be able to do at the end of the learning experience. You will see that there are lots of assistance on the web about the different kinds of verbs depending on the level of difficulty of the skills you're trying to teach. But even those lists include words like understand and know and familiarize, and those words that really don't help you really determine that a person knows something. For example, if they say they understand the difficulties in writing an objective, well, how do you know that they understand? If you cannot answer that question quickly, then you won't be able to determine that they learned this. Now, if you say they list the areas of difficulty in writing objectives, then if you ask yourself, well, how do I know that they list the areas of difficulties? Well, because at the end you have a list. So that correspondence between the verb that you use and what the student is actually doing to prove that they know is going to be useful in determining this. So your verb must be an action that is observable and that it's measurable. Think of the word, and if you can ask yourself, well, how do they understand this? Well, that's not, then using the word understand is not a good choice of verb. My students will know the capitals. Well, how do I know that they know them? Well, they're going to tell me. Then use that particular verb in writing your objective. The other issue or area of difficulty is a compatibility between the objective and the assessment. There's a passage from Major's book that provides a good way to understand this piece. And what you can do now is you can pause and read this and then continue on. So as you see, when you're writing your learning objectives, are you focusing on knowledge, on verifying that students learn something? If your learning objective has to do with knowledge, is your evaluation testing knowledge? Or if you said you wanted them to develop skills, like operating a machine, is the evaluation actually testing them while they are operating the machines? And if your objective was about dispositions or attitudes, is your objective really evaluating the development of attitudes? For example, if your learning objective asks the students to define the terms of so and so, then is your evaluation asking them to define the terms? If your learning objective asks the students to measure a length of something, is the evaluation asking them to measure the length, or is your evaluation asking them to talk about how to measure the length? That's the key difference there. If you're asking your students to choose healthy foods, are you actually evaluating that the students are choosing them, or are you evaluating that the students write about how to choose healthy foods? So there's a good way for you to determine whether there's compatibility between what you're saying you want your students to achieve in your learning objective and what you're evaluating them for.